Today is Monday, February 3rd, 2025, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 4, Episode 4, Community Q&A and News Roundup. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, DaShaun Carter.
It's a great day to be a Spring Developer. I don't know if you knew this or not, but
DaShaun,
it
how's it
is,
going?
and it just keeps on getting better. Things are great. This community is amazing. I've had a lot of great interactions. Sometimes we do this show, and a lot of times we kind of connect. Some others they reach out and they say, "Hey, I was thinking about this. Have you thought about it this way?" And I've had a lot of fun the past few weeks connecting with people and watching them explore how Spring is going to make their lives a little bit easier, make their getting to production a little bit easier. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's a great day.
It is. It's a great day to be a Spring Developer. Always is. We have a little bit of a fun show today. We're going to get into some Q&A. So if you have questions about anything related to Spring and Java, please get those questions in, and we'll see if we can answer them. We're also going to go over some of the news that's been happening over the last month or so, whether it comes to Spring or Java or AI or anything we're kind of interested in. We'll kind of share that out today and kind of get you caught up. One of our kind of things with this show was, hey, we want to try and keep you up to date with all the things that are happening in the Spring ecosystem. It's hard to keep up with so many projects, so many things going on. So we'll see if we can't get you caught up today. With that, I do want to mention that we are always looking for topics for shows. So if you have a idea for a show, or you want to be a guest on the show, we're always looking for guests. If you want to join us on a show, head over to springofficehours.io. There's a place to kind of suggest a topic. You can do that there. And this is a reminder that this is a live stream that we do every Monday, usually from 1 to 2 Eastern. But if you can't be here live and you want to catch the replay, you can catch it on the YouTube Spring Developer channel. And what we do is we go ahead and take this and turn this into a podcast, usually the next day. You can go ahead and take us wherever you go with your podcast, in the car, on the run, on a hike, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can usually find us there. So what's been going on, DaShaun? We are out of January, which is the longest month of the year. I joked on Twitter, it was like 87 days long. It just feels like the longest month of the year, and it is. So.
What's going on with me? Ted's in the room. Ted's here, and Ted is also a runner. I think his race is coming up, but I did a race yesterday, so that's good.
Nice.
I'm back on the board,
right.
and I'm looking forward. It's gonna be tough. I went out on my bike this morning, and I was supposed to do 20 miles, and I got to mile 8, and I'm like, I'm done. My legs hurt. So I'm sore. I'm tired. I'm old, but I'm gonna fight it. I'm going to fight it every bit of the way. So this year, I'm doing a lot of that. I'm going to be struggling, but I'm going to fit it in. And I'm just going to, at least one more season, I'm going to give it a whole year to just like make things happen. But the cool thing about that is that effort that I put in over here on the training side, I'm doing the same thing over here on the like me and the productivity and getting the production side. You've seen my little shorts that I've been editing with the energy drinks.
Yep.
The whole point of that is just to get better at editing. And I can do that now. Like I figured out, like, hey, here's the tools I need. Like I am still not Dan Vega production quality, but I can create these videos in 30 minutes when it used to take me 4 hours. So
Yeah.
I've definitely, I'm taking that practice. I got a few more to do here.
Nice.
So I'm going to keep on working through those, but that's just getting those reps in.
Yeah.
And the thing here, like this show, my favorite part of the week is going and reviewing. And sometimes we don't talk about it, but I'm always looking at what's the new things coming down the pipe. Sometimes it's hard for us because we see like what's not been released, and we're talking to customers about what they want to see in the next release. So
Right.
sometimes it's hard to remember, like in my head, like, oh yeah, you can do that already. Oh, whoops, that's in 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to keep track, but that's things that we're doing behind the scenes is looking at what's happening. We're taking your feedback, we're giving it to the Spring Engineering team, and it's a two-way street in this open source community that we have here. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. But the training has definitely changed some things in what I do as I sit at my desk.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Both sides are trending in the right direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for me, one of my kind of go-to mechanisms for engaging with the community is just like going out on LinkedIn or going out on Twitter and asking, sharing some code snippet or something that is happening in our community and just gauging interest. Last week, I threw up a quick tweet and a quick post on LinkedIn on like Monday. And I was like, here Spring AI has added support for DeepSeek, which was all the rage over the last couple of weeks, right? And within 12 hours, that was the most popular post I've ever had on LinkedIn. So I was like, I guess we're going to talk about DeepSeek this week. So,
DeepSeek, right? For so many people, for so many reasons, they're like, hey, what happened to my stocks? Right? Like, what happened? Like, I was just taking a bath, and then all of a sudden, I lost a bunch of money. What's happening? DeepSeek has definitely made some waves, and I've seen tons of content around it. Everybody's got a hot take on what it means. From what I've gathered, not that I've taken it for a spin, I've also got at least 20 people ask me, hey, have you done DeepSeek on Raspberry Pi? Have you done DeepSeek on Raspberry Pi? Somebody's done it, and that's on my agenda for this week. But everybody has a hot take, and yeah, it's cool in a lot of ways. But I'm understanding it's still not great for coding.
No, I would disagree with that. I think so there's a couple different versions of it. They'd first come out with like V3 back in December, and there were some really good benchmarks on V3. But what came out recently was R1, which was like their reasoning model, and this was on par with like the O1s of the world for a lot of those things like math, science, coding, being able to solve like some of the like GitHub problems out there. So it's benchmarking wise, it's doing really good in coding. And at least from what I've tested out, like it's pretty good. It's pretty slow if you're running it on the public API. I think they're just kind of getting slammed. But one of the great things about R1 is it's an open source model. So there's a bunch of different distilled, like the largest one is like 671 billion parameters, but there are a bunch of smaller distilled versions. There's a 7 billion and 8 billion. And I installed the 8 billion on my local machine using Olama, and I was running that locally. And, from Spring AI, like that's really quick on my local machine. So yeah, I did a couple videos on that. One, just an introduction to what it is and why you should care. Again, I think open source is a real big deal for that. And then I talked about how to install that locally, use it in a Java app, use it in a Spring AI app. And I think what I took away from that was just like hats off to the Spring AI team for that popped up and they had support for that right away. And it uses the OpenAI API, but they were able to add support for that right away, which was really cool. So
that thank you for that. That's a great, I respect your opinion. Your feedback matters. For those of you that are joining us, make sure you say hi, tell us where you're joining from, because my mom and dad are always watching and they like to see where everybody's joining from. There's been lots of good comments. We have a couple that are already running it on Raspberry Pi. But I want to make sure when you come to my house for dinner, if you leave hungry, that's your fault. Here, if you're live, if you've got questions, make sure you get them asked. But you only have to ask once. All of the questions are in our little chat window, and I'm going down and putting stars while Dan's talking. He's doing the same while I'm talking. So you only have to ask once. We'll put a star next to it, and then the questions that we don't pop up right away, just know that, hey, there's a star on it, and we will try to get to it when we have time, when it fits. So thanks for being here. But don't leave hungry. Get your questions asked.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought a good place to start, DaShaun, that we haven't been to in a while was our good friend calendar.spring.io, which now forwards over to the spring.io site.
What an amazing tool.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So we haven't really taken a look at it lately, and I figured we could start here, just kind of looking through January in the first week here and some things that popped
You know what?
up.
We should probably go back to December because it's been that long since we looked at it.
All right.
You know, we did a show on Spring Security 6.4. We did a show on Spring Boot 3.4, but we've had patch releases since then. But yeah, we should go back and see all the other things because, on December 4th, we have our Spring Tool Suite. We have things that have been coming up. There's a lot more than just the Spring libraries. We actually have tools around what we do as well. I still get a kick. I still get good feedback when I show people the Spring CLI experimental project. Like, it's still cool. I still use it all the time, and that's a great tool. I hasn't seen a release in a while, but yeah, Spring Cloud. Remember, we have our Spring Framework comes out first, just as a reminder. Spring Framework, and then the Spring Boot layer comes out, and then it's the others, the Spring Data, the Spring Cloud, because they're all dependent on the Spring Boot layer. So there's kind of an order for how those things get released. And yeah, we saw the Spring Cloud release 2024 at the beginning of December. There's already a 2025 release that's out, and that will be in the Spring Boot 3.5 release train. So that's good stuff.
One thing I haven't had a chance to dive into, and we see in December here, is Spring Modulith has a whole bunch of updates, a whole bunch of releases there, 1.1.12, 1.2.7, 1.3.1.
We've had another round.
Right? We are definitely planning a new show around Spring Modulith. We'll let you know when we get that scheduled out, but want to talk more about that and kind of what's new in Spring Modulith. So that should be fun. So again, if you're on the calendar, and you're curious, like, oh, I see that Spring Modulith 1.3.1 release, what was in it? You can kind of just click through to that and see what was closed in that. You can see the GitHub issues, the kind of discussions around why those changes were made. So that's something you can always dive into. Towards the end of December, we had Spring AI 1.0.0 Milestone 5. Milestone 6 is coming up soon. It was on the schedule for last week. I think it got moved to this week for some changes to get in there. But those milestones are
moved those milestones out.
Those lots of interesting stuff coming in Spring AI, marching towards that 1.0 release, which is pretty exciting. The other thing I wanted to point out here was in January, I was looking through the release. Something that we've talked about on this show, but we didn't dive into this one yet, is that in 2025, we are moving towards Spring Boot 3.4, which is going to be based on Spring Framework 7.0. And
3.5.
We talked about it. 3.5, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is based on Spring Framework 7.0. And we talked about it in the Spring Security episode, because in the Spring Security Guide, there's like hey, here's what to expect for Spring Framework 7. Like, if you want to start thinking about that upgrade now, not in November when it just comes out and go, oh, how do we get on this? If you start thinking about that now, that would be good. And lo and behold, there is a 7.0 Milestone 1 already released. So if you want to jump through there, 57 issues closed, you can start to see the beginnings of what Spring Framework 7.0 is going to look like.
I had this starred, but you brought it up. Simon says, I'm already nudging people to create their own parent POM given the Spring Boot 3.5 parent POM changes. The impact on boot starter could be documented better. He's already been through the 3.5 release. He's taken it for a spin, and you notice the Spring Boot parent POM, the Spring Boot parent parent starter, those are gone. And why are they gone? Well, if I literally I got the ping from Simon through another channel, and then I was like, oh, let me go look, and I saw the thread. Those were actually there to bring in the dependencies for testing, but they're not necessarily needed for what we do on the development side. So the decision was made. Hey, let's move those to make it easier. The other pain point, again, from my perspective, the other pain point that we had with the parent palm and what we were doing with that pattern was we had a lot of people that were extending or inheriting from the parent palm and then putting their own kind of layer in between or layer around the top, and that impacted their ability to upgrade. Their upgrade process was hindered because of the way that their parent palm was set up. So it's going to alleviate a lot of pain for a lot of customers on their upgrade path, but it's also going to be a little bit of a pain point for some customers as they move forward, expecting that to be there. So let's get ahead of it. Let's know that that's coming. And this is almost 50% maybe of the customers that I've been working with have some project somewhere that has put a parent palm wrapper around the Spring Boot parent palm. So this is definitely going to have some impact far and wide. And now I'm glad that we're talking on that. There's things to look forward to. We want you to be aware that there's changes. We talked about the Spring Security changes. Here's some Spring Boot changes. We've made some changes. Be aware.
Awesome.
We'll talk about that more soon, I'm sure.
Yep. I see another question here. Let's go ahead and dive into this. Hi, guys. How do you see Spring evolving for AI-driven interactions, given its strength in building API-first apps that can be accessed not just via UI, but also by AI agents in the future? Great question. Obviously, there's two sides of this question. So first, just like building generative AI applications in Spring. Obviously, Java, very big, very popular programming language, especially in the enterprise space. And that's kind of where the idea of kind of Spring AI came from, right? We're in the enterprise space. Enterprises are going to be building AI-driven applications. How can we help out there? So Spring AI is giving you all the tools that you need to build these applications. Obviously, AI is very big right now. We're all looking for ways to incorporate it in our businesses. So I think that's just going to only grow. As far as agents go, I'm going to punt on that for a few minutes because we have an article that we'll take a look at in a little bit around agents, because it is 2025. Everybody's talking about AI agents. How do I start building them in Spring? So we'll get to an article on that in a little bit, but we'll take a look at that as well. Got another question here from A. Hi, guys. I mostly do CRUD apps at work, 3+ years. Any advice on how to get to the next level?
That's a tough question because it kind of implies that there's a next level beyond CRUD. CRUD makes sense. You're going to see CRUD applications for the rest of your career. So I don't want you to think that there's like a magical next place where you don't see CRUD.
Yep.
There's not. You will see CRUD apps, whether it's the main thing or not. You're going to see those apps forever. Now, how do you get to the next level? Like, it depends on what you're doing now, because just saying you're doing CRUD apps, that leaves a lot to need to know. Are you doing Hadios? Are you doing Spring Data REST? Are you doing it all manually? Are you using any of the frameworks? Because if you're not, I'd point you in that direction in order to level up your game, in order to take your CRUD to the next level. Maybe not what you're doing in everything, but there's a ton of projects inside of the Spring ecosystem that can really help with that, make it easier. Spring Data REST is one that kind of brings in that Hadios hyper context. What is it? Connects all the dots. It
Right.
makes your APIs understand each other, and you can pull them together. You can tie them together really easily. But that's a project that we haven't talked, and I don't see it a lot out in the wild, but I loved it. I used it. It made things go really, really fast, and it added a lot more power to my APIs. that were still CRUD based, CRUDL. But yeah, it added a lot more power. That's one thing that I would take a look at. The other thing that I would say is Spring REST docs. Documenting your APIs is a very still undervalued
Yeah.
superpower, especially in this age of AI. If you can deliver good documentation along with your APIs, CRUD or other, then you're allowing those agents, you're allowing the AI to understand what you're doing a lot better. So those are the two things that I would say. Check out some of the other Spring projects that might be able to help you with your CRUD-based apps, and Spring Data REST. Definitely take a look at Spring Data REST in order to deliver documentation that matches your code and can actually be used to validate your code. If you're doing Spring Data REST or Spring REST docs, you can actually validate your code and provide that same kind of testing, validating, and delivering code that matches what's being delivered.
I love this question. I had a really great opportunity last week to be on a podcast, the Java Challengers podcast, and we talked for like 2 hours, mostly about kind of career stuff and Java and Spring. And this was kind of one of the themes, like how do I get to the next level? And I think you really need to step back and like, what is the next level for you? Like, do you want to get better at you want to be a better Java developer, a better Spring developer? You got to start to define those goals, because one of the things that is crazy in our industry is there's so much to learn. You're never going to learn everything. So you got to be very deliberate with skill acquisition. Like, what are you trying to learn and why? Like, if it is to get that next job, maybe you kind of see yourself in a dead end in your current position and you're looking at another job. Start looking out there. Like, what are companies looking for? What are the dream jobs that you're trying to get? What are they looking for? And then be deliberate about learning those things. And I was saying that, leaving a position for money is not the only reason to leave a position and look for a position outside of the one you're currently in. If you find yourself solving the same problems over and over at work, like you're just doing the same app over and over again, and that happens, then you have to find ways to kind of gain those other skills that you're trying to learn, right? This could be on the side. So either you're like building some side projects, contributing on open source, just learning these things on your own. You have to find a way to kind of learn those skills that you're trying to acquire. The other thing is you could always look for another position in a lateral move that may just challenge you more, right? One of the questions that you'll get when you start interviewing is like, why are you looking to leave your current position? And it may be because I'm not being challenged enough. I'm working on the same projects. I want to be challenged more. I want to work on these higher problems. So I would say there are ways to get there, but you got to define your next level. Like, where are you trying to get to? And then be very deliberate about these skills that you're trying to acquire.
You said there are ways to get there. I say there are infinite ways to get there.
For sure.
But there are no shortcuts.
No.
If you want to get better, you gotta do more of it.
Yep.
But also, good question, and thank you for being here. And there's a lot of good comments here over what we've been talking about. Like, hey, the tight coupling to palms. It's painful in all forms. But we do want. I like the value of having those release trains, so I can upgrade a Spring Boot version and then get all the dependencies upgraded along with that. Simon says, yes, some nice enhancements in Modulith 1.3, and we've had a new release just a couple of days ago. So now we've got 1.3.2 and 1.4.1 milestone.
Milestone 1, yep.
Or milestone 1. So yeah, Jitter Heads, CRUD. CRUD is great for DDD, and DDD plus Modulith is even better.
There you go. Yeah.
Simon gives a little warning, don't rely on AI to do your documentation. I like the way he says this. Documentation needs to convey what your code cannot. Mm-hmm. Add value where AI certainly cannot. And B West has a nice comment. Hey guys, thanks for all the content and advice. So yeah, sideline learning projects are great. Pick something that you want to do, not some random project. Right.
Don't go through the course and build a recipe, collection if you're not interested in building a recipe collection.
Simon says, "Don't linger in your comfort zone." This is true, and I think I've definitely taken from that same book, the Atomic Habits book. the comfort zone, you don't learn in your comfort zone. You learn when you're uncomfortable.
And
Yeah.
to that point, I think I can't think of any specific ones right now, but there's a lot of articles and sentiment going around about that. Like AI has been really great at like helping us learn new things, right? Like we can use AI to like come up with a schedule or a structure, an agenda of like how I want to learn new thing. And it gives us that instant gratification of like, here's the error. How do I fix that? And you fix that. But a problem with that is, at least like going back to kind of my roots and what I've learned over the years, is like the way that I've learned the most is like by doing and failing and then figuring out how to fix that. And I feel like we're kind of shortchanging ourselves a lot. Like, just, hey, LLM, like, what is this problem? How do I fix it? And then fix it and then move on to the next thing. I don't know that we're learning as much. And listen, I use AI tools and large language models as much as the next person, but I am cognizant of that. So that's something to think about.
Hey, Dan, what do you think about low code AI tools?
I love them. They make it accessible for everyone who's not a developer, and I think there's a real opportunity for anyone building Java and Spring apps to build your own low code tools using Spring AI. So Spring AI and Java are there for you as the developer to build these applications. You could build interfaces on top of this, WYSIWYGs, drag and drops, things to make it easy for people who are non-developers to kind of build some of these workflows. So I think we're in a great time for that. And yeah, I'd love to see some more projects out there in the Java and Spring space building some of these low code tools.
Sahil says, "Hey guys, how can I contribute to Spring Framework as an open source developer?" I'm happy to jump on this one because it has never been easier to contribute to the Spring ecosystem. Recently, there was a change that allows you to
Yes.
what is your agreement? Just says like, "Hey,
Yep.
I can contribute," and
Contributors.
the
Yeah.
contributor agreement, and all you have to do
Right.
is sign your contributions, sign your code, which is an easy process these days, and you don't need permission. That's the big thing. Everybody asks this question like, "Hey, I would like to contribute." You don't need permission, and in fact, the Spring team actually labels of all the 50 plus projects that we have. If you go in and look, there's labels on our GitHub repo that says "good for a first time contributor."
Hmm.
And I'm going to say this. If you're looking for a little bit of street cred, go and complete one of those. You don't need permission, and we're giving you all the signs to go and do it. There's not a lot of handholding. There's hundreds of developers that are asking the same question. You got to get there first. Go find one of those, contribute. And a lot of it's just documentation. Documentation is really important. It's
Hmm.
never been more important in this world of AI, where we've got agents trying to read things. So having good documentation is important. So go find one of those issues. You don't need anybody's permission and start. That's where you go.
Yeah, I'll give an example too. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I was working on a video for some of the stuff in Spring Security 6.4 that we talked about. And one of those was the one-time token generation. And I was trying to build on an example just to kind of learn myself like how that works. And I came across this error and I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like, what, that error is like kind of misleading, and I'm not sure what's going on here. So yes, I have like I have another advantage here where I can like ping the Spring Security team directly and say what's going on here. And I found kind of the answer, but afterwards, the Spring Security team was like, "Hey, can you create an issue for that? Because we'd like to fix that and make that error message a little bit better." So just using these things and coming across an error and then going, "That doesn't seem right. Let me submit an issue for that because I know somebody else might come across this, and I want everybody else to have a better experience." That is a really great first step. That doesn't involve a whole lot on your end, right? We're not asking you to fix like some complicated bug. You're just kind of reproducing your experience in a GitHub issue, and that really helps the team out.
Yeah, that's good. It takes a community. We all have to contribute, and I'm going to be transparent here. There's been many times where something didn't feel right, it didn't seem right, and I was like, "Oh, it's probably just me. It's probably not a bug. I'll do something else. I don't have time to go and figure out what I've done wrong," when it actually might have been a bug. were raising the issue, however confused I was or not. It took a while, but I did that a lot of times. And I think part of being a senior developer is understanding that when you're using open source tools, when you open source projects, when you find something that doesn't make sense, you're willing to go and take the step to open up an issue and reproduce it and explain, hey, here's what I saw in the docs. Here's my reproducible thing that I got that's confusing to me. Do you think, is that an issue or is it just me? Like, do that. And if you're hardcore, then you'll go and you find a bug, then you'll do the PR that matches that issue that you raised. That's a great way to get your foot into this open source ecosystem with whatever project you're working on.
Great. All right. I see a question here and I have something kind of related to it. So I figure we can go ahead and tackle this now. The question is, hi, will Spring soon add support for AI agents? So great question. I have a article here from Christian on the Spring AI team. We'll go ahead and put this in the show notes for those of you just kind of listening to us on the run. But the title of this article is Building Effective Agents with Spring AI. So it starts off and links to a recent publication from Anthropic on the idea of building effective agents. So if you want to just dive in and learn a little bit more about what agents are, how can we start to build effective agents, this is a really good read. So I would suggest going through that. But then in this article, Christian, again, this is part one, starts to lay out how we can start to build agents using Java or Kotlin and Spring AI. So it goes into like building workflows. And again, agents are really at the heart of it, these kind of individual systems that can perform a certain task. And then as we start to like chain these systems together, we get these really nice workflows. And in this article, Christian lays out like what a chain workflow looks like, how to use it, and then goes into some code on how to build this out. So really interesting. I haven't had a chance to play with this yet. This is on my radar. I'm interested in kind of diving into this and building some workflows using Spring AI. But as I said at the beginning, 2025, one of the words you're going to hear a lot is agents in the AI space. And how can we start to take advantage of that in Java and Spring AI? This is a really good place to start. So I would suggest taking a look at this article, going through it if you're interested in building agents in Spring AI. Oh, were you talking? I lost you.
I was on mute. I said, so you can do it already. Agents with Spring AI is a thing. Come along.
Something else that we're going to talk about too that kind of goes into this is this idea of Model Context Protocol, MCP. And this was an initiative, a protocol started by Anthropic, the creators of Claude. And the idea was like, hey, we started building these large language models applications that use these large language models. And a lot of the time we need our own data. And we got to pull some data from these like 4 or 5 different sources. How do we get that? Up until now, I think kind of the way that we solved for this was RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation. And we would take our data, our PDFs, or whatever data we had, we'd put it into a vector database, and now we can do some similarity searches and kind of pass that along as context to the LM. Well, the MCP protocol says, okay, we're going to define this protocol on how you can get data from whatever data source you want. So some examples would be maybe I have a local file system. Maybe I have a database. Maybe I want to reach out to GitHub and get data from that. Maybe I have some other application in my universe that I need to talk to. So there's a way to kind of create these MCP clients and servers, and there is support for that in Spring AI as well. So I think DaShaun, I think we've decided next week we'll probably dive into that a little bit more.
Yes.
So if you're interested in that and what that means to you as a Java developer, as a Spring developer, please go ahead and pay attention to that. We'll kind of do a deep dive on that next week.
I see a question here from Anthony. Like, hey, I just want to make sure that I see the notes, right? Anthony is on the same channel that I talk with Simon, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to make sure that is it Spring Boot starter parent that's also disappearing?" And I'm looking in the Spring Milestone releases, and I don't see a Spring Boot starter parent for 3.5. So please hold. I'm gonna do one more check to see if I see the Spring Boot. We're not at a milestone yet.
Well,
So
speaking of those being published, something else I wanted to mention. I have Josh's great roundup here. So if you don't know, another reason to visit spring.io/blog. Josh kind of does a weekly roundup of things that have happened in the Spring ecosystem. And one of the things he just mentioned there is exciting news from Michael Manoa. We're now publishing milestones to Maven Central. So the TLDR from this is the Spring portfolio will begin releasing its milestones and release candidates to Maven Central, starting with the releases related to major versions due out in November. So I'll include this article in there as well, but that was a pretty exciting announcement.
oh, look at this. Ambu's like, hey, go ahead and check out this issue for details.
Nice.
Again, if you don't ask your questions, especially when you're here live, if you don't ask your questions, like this is it. We don't always answer the questions. All right, Ambu had it up. He was probably looking at the issue already. Ask your questions because even if we don't talk about it here on the show, our community is here to answer those questions in the chat. So thanks, Ambu and Anthony. We'll circle back on that and let's talk. I want to do a show where we talk a little bit more about staying ahead of the curve, right? Clearly, we've got for everybody else, not Anbu, not Anthony, not Simon, for everybody else that hasn't taken a look at Spring Boot 3.5, that doesn't have that responsibility. Maybe you've got other teams. Maybe you're not on 3.4 yet, but you can be looking ahead. You can be looking ahead now to understand those changes so that, yeah, when that release finally does come, that you're ready to take it. Because all of the things that are happening in the Spring team and from the Java team with Java 24 that comes out in March, right? You want those changes. You want to be able to take advantage of the better memory, the better garbage collection, the better performance, etc. So keep looking ahead.
It's funny that you mentioned Java 24. I was just going to mention another one of those things in Josh's roundup was he did a beautiful podcast with our good friend Billy and talked about Java 24, JDK 24. There's 24 JEPs in JDK 24. And we definitely got to talk to Billy and see if we can get him on the show as we get closer to JDK 24 and talk about all the things coming. And the joke now is, I wonder, is there going to be 25 JDKs in JDK 25? Because this is going to be hard to keep up.
Yep, that would. I mean, for the team that's delivering Java right now, I mean, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
B West says, hey, how do you stay motivated in the current climate? I'll tell you what works for me, and it's well documented. The thing that works for me is having a community like this. I've got my buddy here, Dan, who we get to have conversations about what's hot, what's not, what's the better way forward. And we're learning from each other as well as everybody else that's in the chat. We're learning from each other. We're collaborating and trying to make sure that we stay motivated. Even if it's about things like your personal record in running a half marathon. Congratulations, Ted. Even if it's things like that, we're all trying to get better and having a community where we can all kind of celebrate and help each other. That's how I stay motivated. So thank everybody for being here because that's an important piece. Dan, what are your thoughts? How do you stay motivated?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I've always I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being a developer. I love talking to the community. So for me, it's always been like trying to get better as a developer. And that's what pushes me to like want to learn the next thing and like get better at my craft. If I was just doing the same exact thing every day and never learning, like that would be very boring to me. So what motivates me is like, I want to learn the next thing. I want to get better at my craft. You're not going to know everything, but I love learning. So I'm constantly trying to learn new things and get better at my craft. So yeah, that definitely motivates me.
Chat's doing a great job over here. Like, hey, it's a great time to be a Java developer. Play with the latest releases, including the upcoming JDK 24. I think the early access for JDK 25 is also out, if I'm not mistaken. But how not? Right? There's so many exciting upcoming changes. Engage in the Java user groups. He says we'll hear Wagner's music soon. But yeah, thanks. Thanks for all of that insight. This is what we're here for. Look into the new paradigms that are finally possible. DDD is becoming even easier. So yeah, we're doing things.
I got another question here from B West that I thought we could take a look at. Not sure if you've ever covered this before, but it would be great to hear more about how you both got to your current level and any tips someone can follow if they were interested in following in your shoes.
We say it all the time. You don't have to work for Broadcom in order to be a Spring developer advocate. Dan and I think we'll still both say we were Spring developer advocates long before we landed in this role on this team. Ian Duncan is here, and he's just a student. If I can find a comment from Ian, I know he's here, right? He's just a student, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to navigate. What's my best path forward? But he's a student, and he organized the Kenya Java user group.
Awesome.
He brought it up, and it's an officially recognized Java user group, internationally. So start where you're at. You can be a Spring developer advocate without being in the seat, and that's the best way to start. Be that person for your pod, for your team, for your university, for your classmates. Be that person that's helping and engaging, because that's what it takes to sit in Dan's seat, right? That's what it takes to sit in the seat. Is you have to be able to give and give and give. And then, yeah, eventually you do that and you find a path. But there's infinite ways to get there. There's just no shortcuts. You have to start where you're at. You are a Spring developer advocate.
Yeah,
just by thinking about it. Be there. Do it. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, you don't need permission, DaShaun.
You don't need permission. Nobody gave us permission to do those things.
Right. I'll this is a small little plug for the book that I'm working on right now with our friend Nate Chuda, but I'm currently in the middle of the fundamentals of software engineering. I just finished a career management chapter. And I talked a lot about it.
Hold on.
You said again.
You locked up for a sec.
You lost
me?
You
said, yep, we lost you for just a sec.
You got me?
You're here now. Right. You were saying your career management chapter.
Yes. So we talked about a few of these things in the chapter, and I think you need to be very deliberate with this. So it's important to kind of just lay out a goal. Like, what are some of the paths that I can take in my career? If you want to be an architect, if you want to be a developer advocate, if you want to be a staff engineer, how do you get there? Like, you got to be very deliberate with that and start planning ahead. Like, where do I want to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years? And again, there are so many things in our industry pulling at your attention, saying, learn me, learn this. We talk about it a lot. Avoid resume-driven development, right? Be specific with the things that you're learning on your path to get you to where you want to be. And I think that's a really good place to start. We talk a lot about, from ThoughtWorks, there's the idea of a technology radar, right? Build your own technology radar.
You're cutting out. Your camera's frozen.
Right now, these are the things I'm like gun-ho with.
Technology radar. Build your own. We lost you for a sec. I know what you were saying. But build your own. Like, give yourself
just kind
an
of
idea.
And be specific with what you want to learn. I think working backwards, like I said, is like, hey, I want to be in this position in 5 years. Work backwards from that and lay out a plan for that. So my advice would just be very specific and talk to people who are in the position that you want to be in. If you want to be like an architect, talk to architects. How did you get there? What did you learn? How did you get to where you are? And then the other side of that is building your professional network. I think one thing DaShaun and I have always really kind of done and really excited about is being involved in the community. And I think being involved in the community has allowed me to meet so many different people that have really helped my career along the way. So building that professional network is really important as well.
I really like that answer. I'm gonna add one more thing, and I know it's not like hip or cool to have a blog these days, but when I look at our community, when I look at people that are asking, hey, how do I get involved? When I see a blog that's describing what you've been working on, that means a lot to me. One of the things that I've been saying, again, because the question came up, one of the things that I've been saying, and this is I'm convinced of it, you don't have to have 3 years of experience or 2 years of experience or even a year of experience to be a senior engineer, a senior software developer, to get that senior title. If you have a blog, maybe Ian, I'm looking at you. If you've got a blog, I look at Ian because he's still in school. And if you got a blog that describes the stuff that you're working on, 50 repos of projects that you've done in your GitHub project is worth less than a blog that describes what you did in those repos. I also go and I say one app in production that you've been taking care of in production and that you understand deeply is better than 50 blogs or 50 repositories in a GitHub repo. Doing things and being able to speak about them deeply. Find one thing, go deep on that one thing, that will make you a senior engineer. Whether you got the year's experience in a professional position or not. When I was in college, when I was at university, I started doing that. So when I came out of university, even though it was just me and the hustle between my classmates at university, I had experience taking things and taking care of production, and I could speak about the decisions that I made, the problems that I ran into. I could speak about them deeply on that very first interview when I was done with college.
Yep.
Start where you're at.
I love this comment from Ted too. Share your learning in public. You don't have to be an expert. I think many times people think that to write a blog post, to create a video, to give a presentation at work or at a conference that you need to be an expert, and you don't. There are a couple advantages that you may have. One is somebody who's new to this. You have a different perspective than somebody who's been doing this for 20 years. Like this is my experience with tool, framework, language, etc. And nobody can call you a liar for sharing your experience. Like that's your experience. And you don't need to be an expert to do that. So yeah, get out there, share your experiences. Again, we always say this, but starting at work, maybe do a lunch and learn. Again, presentation skills are a great side of this if you're a developer. And you don't need to have presentation skills because you want to talk in front of 1,000 people at a conference. They're just good skills to have. And this could be a lunch and learn. This could be a local meetup group. This could be a video online. Those are good skills to kind of, those soft skills to gain as a developer.
Thank you for saying that part. I like to just jump on and see people's faces and do things live in person and communicate like this. I like this. And some people choose not to. Some people are better with an async chat or issue comments. And I get it. Everybody's different. But to that question of writing a blog post, if I were to write a Spring for GraphQL blog post, it would be at a 100 level all the way, and it would be 4 hours to get through like a hello world because that's the level that I'm at. Dan, on the other hand, he's gonna, his is gonna be 30 minutes, and he's gonna be at a 300 level because he knows it so deeply, and he can walk you down the path. He'll tell you, look out for there, don't go there, and he'll give you that nice path because he's been there so many times. But there's somebody in the community that is ready to read Dan's 30-minute 300 level, and there's another person in the community that's ready to read like my hello world. Let's get to hello world with Spring for GraphQL. So the thing that I smile at, and every time I have that thought in my head, I always think about Dan saying, hey, there's an aisle and cereal or water, right? There's tons of options, right? But everybody's got one that they like better. Everybody's got a way that they learn better. And it's okay if you're not an expert. And it's also okay to make mistakes. It's absolutely okay. So yeah, start where you are.
Awesome. I see a question here for you. This one's got you all over it. What is the alternative way? Oh, not Raspberry Pi to develop and deploy apps on Kubernetes platforms. I have a MacBook Pro laptop.
Yeah. So the reason I start with a Raspberry Pi, the reason I lean into that is because we've got community all over the world, and that is a very affordable option to start with. And because I can show you how to do it on a Raspberry Pi, Of course, I can show you how to do it on a MacBook Pro. And I would lean into the same tools. I'm a big fan of K3S and Kind and those lightweight Kubernetes deployments that you can run on your laptop. And I do. I could share my screen and I'll show you that I'm running Karifi on Kind on my laptop right now. I have on every laptop that I use and my daily driver, I have a Kubernetes deployment, one node or more on my laptops, on my daily drivers, because that's a thing. Like that's how we're leveraging architecture, and I can connect them. I can connect all my Mac laptops to be in the same Kubernetes cluster. That's a thing. So if you'd like more, go ahead and you're on LinkedIn, send me a message, connect on LinkedIn, send me a message, and let's schedule time and I'll walk you through it. If you can't figure it out from what's on my blog, I will walk you through it. I will show you how to get a Spring Boot app deployed to Kubernetes quickly, easily on your MacBook Pro. I'm happy to do that for you.
I like Ted just coming with all the knowledge here today. It's required to make mistakes. Otherwise, you are not learning. And that's, again, I talked about it earlier, but that's one of my fears with some of these LLMs right now is that we're just kind of getting the answers and not going through that failure. Failure is the best teacher in life, both in life and coding, like being able to like fail and then kind of find a resolution to that or a solution. Really, really kind of gives you that aha moment and teaches you. So don't be afraid to fail. It's a good thing. Cool. What else is going on? What else do we have in the news? I think, going back to, what was that? The other thing I wanted to mention, that some news that came out of the AI world, and I'll share this here, is right after R1 was released from DeepSeek, OpenAI came out with O3 Mini. And I found out about this Friday, and I was like, oh, I got to start testing this out. And I got to tell you, I have no benchmark. I mean, there's benchmarks out there, but I have no personal benchmark to like test this out. It's just like in my experience, this O3 Mini and O3 Mini High, the things that I've been testing it on when it comes to like writing and coding has been really good, especially coding. Anthropic's Claude has always been my go-to for like code when it comes to LLMs. But O3 is really good. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I would check that out. There's an article on OpenAI's website about O3 Mini and what it is. They first announced this during like the 12 days of shipments that they were doing. And this was just released last week. And the really cool thing about this is it's available to everyone. So I think this is even on the free plan, you have access to this. So if you're looking for a good model to use,
oh boy, we lost you.
Definitely get this one in.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're having a little technical difficulties. I apologize for that, but we're in good shape. Take it for a spin. That's a good point that we should maybe just like revisit. I won't say a lot. I've had a couple of conversations about this last week. As companies are trying and moving forward, companies, teams, orgs, developers are looking at how to leverage AI in the different LLMs that are coming out. It's going to move fast. And don't bet on a single LLM. Claude might be your favorite today, but tomorrow might be something better. Be willing to make that change. Put yourself in a position where it's easy to switch between LLMs so you can compare. Because maybe for one use case, Claude is better, but maybe for another, Gemini is the right choice.
Right.
So be comfortable trying these tools. I use that spreadsheet metaphor. Like I can put all sorts of formulas in each of those cells in a spreadsheet, but I don't always want to use the same one all the time. It's not just one that makes me get my job done. I got tons of different formulas I can place in there, and I look at LLMs as the formulas that I'm dropping in. For each specific cell in my spreadsheet, I'm going to just grab a different LLM. Hey, for this need, here's what I got. I use Claude. I use Gemini. For this other need, I'm going to use O3 Mini.
Yep.
Be comfortable.
Yeah, I'm working on a presentation for a couple of conferences, basically, AI-powered dev hacks. Outside of just going to ChatGPT and typing a question and getting an answer, like what are we using it for? One of the things that we talk about when it comes to developers, especially junior developers, right, the biggest thing that you'll do as a developer is the ability to solve problems. And you're given this problem, you have this large application to build. How can you break that down into smaller problems, and then smaller problems, and then solve for those? Because a lot of problems we see the same ones over and over again once we get down to that like minute problem, right? So instead of just asking an LLM to fix this or solve this, here is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Tell me how you might break this down into smaller problems. See how it attacks it. Maybe it's wrong. Don't take it verbatim, but see how it comes up with a plan to solve for that problem, and then go execute that yourself instead of asking it to execute it on your behalf. So there are so many ways to use LLMs besides just going there and asking for an answer.
Good job. Yeah, we have all this power. I hope that everybody is taking advantage of what they have available. I hope that people are, if you don't have access or the money to spend on some of these cloud options, I hope that you have at least pull down one of these mini models. Pull down. I think the Copilot's got like a free tier that you can use. Like, use these tools to just get that little bit of help. Because that's I hate to frame it this way, but I always do. You're always competing. You're always interviewing for your next job. You're always interviewing for that next position, that next role, that next challenge. So give yourself all the benefits, especially the things that are freely available. Put them to use. Figure out how they are going to help your workflow, help you become more productive, whatever you want to say, help you have more fun, right? I like to, I'm quoting Andrew Clay Schaefer when I say the mean time to dopamine, right? Like what does it take to get it so that you can say, yeah, I'm done. That's in production. It's on its way to production. Like fixing that metric for you and how you do your work, measure that and work on that. I think that's a powerful approach. And we have so many more tools to help us do that.
All right, we're starting to wind things down. I wanted to talk about one more thing, and that's conference season. I mean, we're starting to get into the thick of things. I just wanted to mention a few conferences, especially for Java and Spring developers. If you are in Canada or near Montreal, we have Confu coming up at the end of this month. I will be there. I know a couple other members of the Spring team will be there as well. So that is February 26th through the 28th. So go ahead and check that out if you can. Dev Nexus, right around the corner, DaShaun, March 4th through 6th in Atlanta. We will both be there. We will both be at the booth. We have some exciting demos coming up that we're going to show off at the booth. We're both talking. We're going to do a live Spring Office Hours from Dev Nexus. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for Dev Nexus. I'm really excited about that.
I'm already like planning for Dev Nexus. I'm already working on Dev Nexus. I'm trying to deliver Dev Nexus level presentations. I'm not like last week and the week before. I've been working on this. I want to deliver something special that nobody's seen before, but I want to give my best. I'm really excited about Dev Nexus.
Awesome. Another one coming up, Java 1, March 18th through the 20th. This is coming up quickly. I wanted to mention this because they have an early bird pricing that ends in like 7 days. So if you're going to head out to Java 1, register now. The great Jitter Ted will be there as well, out in his neck of the woods. I'll be there. I'm excited about that one. Microsoft JD Conf. I just found out over the weekend I was accepted to that. So that is an online conference put on by Microsoft. So there'll be some exciting talks there. And then lastly, I wanted to mention this. It's a little farther out, but Spring I/O at the end of May. The reason I want to mention this is the CFP ends on February 13th. So if you're interested in speaking at Spring I/O, get those talks in. Stop procrastinating. I know they posted something on Twitter like, are you guys all procrastinating right now? What's going on? And I said, no, I'm just thinking really, really hard on what I want to submit. So if you want to go there, make sure you get those talks in.
Yuri's there's two questions from Yuri. He says, hey, what do you guys think about, your code being sent to Copilot servers for analysis? Like, what if it's not an open source project? Would you still use it? Just curious. No, I don't. I don't want to send my proprietary private stuff to those open source models. I don't. I like to run models locally. That's why I don't have cloud money, first of all, but I also don't want to be charged to train somebody else's model, right? So there's that free tier, but yeah, you got to be careful about what you send and use with those models. But I like to have models running locally. I've got multiple models running locally, and I did see your question. I had it starred about the authorization server. I think we'll circle back on that. And the Spring authorization server, it's lighter weight than Keycloak. It's easier to ingest. You don't have to learn anything new. All of the patterns that you get from Spring make it really easy to understand and to modify. So that's really the reason. You don't have to bring in a heavier weight Keycloak in order to get the same value. And I've been saying that for years. I've never taken Keycloak to production. I've always leaned into Spring authorization server. But if you're interested in learning more, send us a note and we can go deeper on that topic. But thank you for being here and thanks for the good questions. Do you have thoughts on that?
I would say to your point, this may seem kind of okay, yeah, we understand that, but maybe not everybody understands this. Like, you want to check with your work too on things that you're doing with inside your company. You may not be able to send your proprietary code or internal documentation to an LLM. One, they may have it blocked altogether, but you should check with them on what information you're allowed to send to some of these LLMs, because that may be against kind of terms of use and private.
Yeah, don't get fired for using Copilot, please.
Right. So just check on that. Cool. Well,
Dan, what is this time warp that we have here? It always flies by so fast.
I just miss an hour of my Monday every.
I mean, it's a blast, but we're in here going warp speed, doing the run, and it just flies by. But I love every bit of it. I love every bit of it.
So much fun. All right. Well, like I said, we have some exciting shows coming up. We are going to talk about MCP next week. So if you're interested in that, come check that out.
I'm very
I will announce our good friend Shar, who works at Oracle, who is heavily involved in the Java community. Shar is going to join us in 2 weeks to talk about Java 1 a little bit and really just kind of being involved in the Java community. We talked about that some today. I don't think there's anybody better to talk to.
Yeah, Shar is
about kind of being
the real deal.
Community. Talk to a friend Shar in a couple of weeks, and we have so many really good ideas for topics. So we're starting to get these scheduled out. If you want to find out more, best place to do that is at springofficehours.io. You can go ahead and check that out. And again, if you have suggestions for topics, please go ahead and submit those suggestions. We look at those, and we will definitely take those into account. So with that, it's been a lot of fun, friends. We will see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Yes, we will. Take care.